And a pleasant good afternoon to everyone. Hope everyone's doing okay. This is Talk Show Presents. I'm Keith Williams, your host. And for the second time around, and this is probably the first time that we have ever done this. So we had the same guest come on more than once in the 5 years that we have been podcasting here. And this is Erin Scott. She's
Hello.
back. Uh, she used to work at NPR, and we have her on here the last time and she did a really spin on the inflation ordeal here in America. Now she is back to talk about immigration, one of the most controversial topics in the last 5 to 10 years. And there has been a lot of negative things that's been said about this subject, which we will go into as well. So one more time, Erin Scott is here, and let everyone know who you are.
Yes, I'm Erin Scott. Uh, I'm currently working on a podcast known as Traveling Down the Delta Blues Highway. You can find me, I always say it, Audio Chick without the K. And I'm on Instagram and Twitter and audiochick without the K.net. So you can find me and click through wherever you want to find me. The
Um,
The deal is with all of this is I have grown up I'm a third generation Texan. I have family that is in Texas. I have also found or done online dating with a friend who was with Border Patrol and was shot at on the hood of his car. So he flat out quit right away because of that, because he was done with that. My uncle was also way back, I think, two presidential administrations, was with game and warden, or however, what department that is with. They were on the river. They were shot by the cartel just as a warning. And the guy he was with was laughing and just said, yeah, that happens all the time. We just got to get out of here. So they went back to their post, but now he's retired and now sits like a tailgating chair with a gun and says, don't come around me.
the Department of the Interior
No, fish and game.
of Fish and Game.
Yes.
It's a
And there
state,
is,
not a federal agency.
no, it is. There is a whole series with this fish and game. So anywhere you go, yeah, it's federal. But yeah, I mean, and that's where my mother was laughing, because a man who I think I went on another date with said, well, would you want to be Border Patrol? I said, no. And then mom goes, I know what your next answer would be, because I'd been watching the series. And she said fish and game, which would be more harder to, or more, I can't find the word, sorry. Hard to be, or not safe anymore, because you do not have any backup. So you may be just checking for permits or things, but you're also dealing with a lot of people who may be hiding drugs or other things within different parts of the woods or other things. So fish and game, also people may write that off, but at this point in our world, because of cartel and other things happening, it's as much of our problem or part of our culture of patrol and sheriffs. And even in Texas, we have something called constables. They can also do a lot with ticketing and keeping people safe.
Okay.
Mhm,
I'm glad you mentioned constables
mhm.
because constables, that position varies from, state to
State to
state.
state. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like it sounds like to me that like in Texas that, constables are more like law enforcement officers,
Our
to where
constable, sorry to interrupt.
Mhm.
Our constable near my apartment, because I was within my post address was Austin. I was out across county line. That is where Apple chose to be because of taxes. Yet we still are in with Austin address code, but our zip code's different. There we still had sheriff and other things happening, but the constable did have jurisdiction as well.
Okay.
So that's that. Mhm.
So it's really bad. So it's really bad at the border.
Yes, it is. And it has been that way because, like I said, with you through email and things, that my cousin has a daughter who is now, I think, 17. His wife is of Mexican descent. They have had, I guess you may call it land grant, depending on, who chooses what words. Her, hmm, yeah, maybe family down there. And so they can't cross, or people are concerned about her crossing lines. So Sophie, the granddaughter, they're concerned about her crossing over to Laredo to Mexico to see her grandparents. But they have
Um,
crossed the border, but the grandparents have said, please don't do it. The other line is within Laredo. Again, like I said, my uncle with Fish and Game being shot at, he said part of the deal is, and the narrative is, that right around Laredo, the hospitals around there have kind of snipers or safety issues up on top of the roof to, if somebody is hurt and EMS is taking someone across lines, cartel or other things, and this has been multiple, before anything, we're talking before open borders or anything like that. Cartel was coming over, and there may have been a problem with an EMS working on someone, so they had to have safety issues and employed, or I don't know, finding word problems, having to deal with safety issues of our men taking care and doing what they should do to take care of someone.
so let me get this straight. So
Mhm.
most of the issues that's going on at the border is the Mexican cartel.
It can be things that haven't been reported. This was even with my friend when he was working at Here and Now. He came down to report on Beto O'Rourke when he was running. I talked to the producer after we had just lunch. She did not even at the time, so this was a little bit, you'd have to look at the dates and things. She did not know, and it was around that time that locally we had reported on there was a tunnel underneath the border or around somewhere where cartel was um had been caught with uniforms that looked like Chicago police uniforms and going with uh, guns. So they were hoping to smuggle them up to Chicago and into the gang problems up there. Recently, what I've seen on a report, and I think this was on CBS, they said also, though, Chicago's problem has changed, and not so much, like I said, if you read the book Freakonomics and how gangs and drug deals go up, this may not be as much of a problem, or the problem with Chicago is different now, that there isn't a true gang as much as it's different niches that are going on. So there is still illegal drugs and things going on, but it is not a true gang per se. It's multiple gangs and not like LA where you have, you know, Crips versus this and this and this, you know, so that kind of thing.
These are some of the things that people that you know have reported or have made had brought to your attention.
It's become to my attention because of local reporting and things like that. The interesting thing that I found by going to the website was that US Customs and Border Protection, okay, the website itself says on the website, okay, says it is responsible for securing America's borders, coastlines, and ports of entries. Okay, what do you think about that? Because it says it's supposed to secure our borders, coastlines, and ports of entry, and it's to protect the United States against terrorist threats, prevent the entry of inadmissible persons and contraband while facilitating lawful travel, trade, and immigration. The Custom Border Patrol performs these missions with vigilance, integrity, and professionalism. Now, what's going on right now?
You tell me. And you, you tell me. It's obviously they are doing a crappy job. Uh,
I mean, you put that out on the website and you're trying to say this is our, you know, plan, or this is what you have out there under, you go right to the US Customs and Border Patrol.gov, and that's the first thing that they have as their definition. How is this going about? I mean, I was just like floored by what they said and what is going on right now when we say, hey, y'all, this is what we're doing, and we're not even vetting anyone. And even before, under Ted Cruz in the last administration, Ted Cruz wanted more we wanted to vet and get whoever was coming through, vet them and come through legally, or see that you're not, and you need to do the paperwork you need to do to come in because we have laws.
Sounds vague and confusing to me. Um, and their mission is not matching up with their, you know, what they're doing. And plus, in the last 4 or 5 years, that you know, we have this controversy of, you know, of the previous administration. They're you know, pushing to secure funding to build a wall from Texas to California, you know, at the border. And even so much as former President Trump trying to do in a state of emergency, you know, to do it, you know, as well, which, and I read the law on that. And, you know, at that time, you know, nothing really much was going on, you know, at the border to be considered an emergency according to the law. So it was shut down by Congress. I'm quite sure you remember that. They
Yes,
call it a fake state
because
of emergency. You know,
we
but
didn't,
what
we
you
didn't
are,
have to, because we didn't say, hey, y'all, come on in. It wasn't open.
so why do people think that we have so why do people think that we have open borders, even though we necessarily don't?
We do.
Well, we do have one.
What narrative are you seeing where you're not seeing that there are people in
But when,
town? What
yeah,
about
what
DC? Tell me about DC. You saw this week. What's going on in DC right now?
um I'm not sure what's going on in DC.
Oh, really? You're not seeing
Mhm.
that in the media right now? That's happening right now in DC. The mayor is crying right now in DC.
What's going on in Washington, DC?
She's crying because she says, oh, Abbott you're busing illegal immigrants to our town, and we can't handle this. We can't handle enough people. We don't have tents. We don't have, enough places to put homeless people. We don't have anything. And now it's an emergency for us. We can't do this. And the press secretary in Washington, the presidential press secretary, called it a political pawn this week. What do you think of that?
So let me get this straight. There's an increased homeless and immigrant population that's coming to Washington D.C. Is that what I'm hearing?
There have been visually illegal immigrants that have been that Abbott have bust due to is it Title 42 that Biden said we're not going through with Mexico, saying we won't keep you in Mexico anymore. And that was on July 14th, I think. So there was an influx over that time of, I think, around 7,000. I don't have the numbers on me right now. Yeah. So, and Abbott said, no more, no more. So we're taking them down. Now, if you had a town, kind of like even, you're crying about Uvalde or anything like that, a small town in Texas that doubled or quadrupled because you had so many people coming in and you couldn't have the money or the resources to do this. And everybody's okay with that for the last year and a half. And now all of a sudden you've got, I don't know, 7,000 coming into your city that you can't handle. And now all of a sudden you're saying, oh my God, we're in a problem, and you're calling it a political pawn. What do you say about that?
I have a problem with that. It seems like to me that, both of the scenarios are the same, but they're being treated different in my opinion. Of course you don't want, a lot of people, in Washington, DC. I mean, it's, especially those that, people think they're undesirable. It's the nation's capital. It's the seat of it's the seat of the free world.
It's exactly.
Washington
She's
has this
even
certain
calling it
reputation.
yeah, she's even also calling it transient. She's not even saying, oh, they just got dumped here and they're going somewhere else.
Well, I mean, it's not uncommon for people to be bus around immigrants or homeless neighbors. That's not uncommon because cities do it all the time. I think a couple of years ago there was a report that accused San Francisco of busing homeless neighbors to other cities in order to get rid of their problem. This is
Mhm.
San
What was
Francisco.
happening when the Biden administration was overnight, when it wasn't being really, covered, that they were putting people on planes and flying them all over America.
Um, well, I wouldn't be too surprised. I wouldn't be too surprised if that's happening as well. I mean, it's a common practice. Um, it's been that way for a very long time. This is how cities supposedly address immigration and homelessness, which most of the time it's through circumstances throughout their control. But this is how a lot of cities in America deal with it, and I think that is wrong. um America does not have a bona fide plan on dealing with immigration,
That's
period.
correct. We did not have a standard operation
Mm,
for
no,
Afghanistan.
and
We did not have a standard operation or SOP for immigration. Why did we do what we did? There was an executive order right away to open up the border. There are what we had constructed border that's just sitting there. Abbott can't even use or contract what is there already. Abbott is having to use, and if you go to Operation Lone Star, gov.texas.gov, and see what Abbott is doing, and he is having to use Texas land and ranchers' land to build a border because ranchers can't even use their own land. They can't, cartel are bringing their own cattle and making the ranchers' cattle sick with, I think it's called a deer tick or something. Ranchers can't even feel safe on their own housing because of coyotes. There's trash, there's dead people on their land.
none of this is actually none of this is actually being none of what you're telling me, I don't think is even being covered. This is not this none of this is, not being covered. And I
You would
think
have
that
to dig
people,
for it, yes, but
right.
it's been
And there's a
happening
lot of,
over multiple, administrations. It's escalated.
right.
Now, you've
So
heard about San Antone, correct? Where 53,000 or 53 immigrants died, mostly males from Mexico.
no, I wasn't aware
Yeah,
of that.
yep. They were shoved
This is
into
exactly what I'm talking about.
they were shoved into a, semi trailer and left, and two men ran. Now they're being held accountable for it. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who caused this incident?
Who caused this incident?
Mhm.
It's cartel. And the question is, and what I want to know, and no one's reporting, or we can't find out, why is this, or where are these people being able to pay to cross the border or pay coyotes? Why are they not using that money to try and get legal papers? Or what is going down? So this is human trafficking. Cartels are using and making billions because of a open border. So cartel is actually making more. Because of the cartel making billions off of human trafficking of an open border, then you have a problem, and we're moving off onto another subject of US and people dying. We've had under 2021, and this is from the CDC, 7,238 deaths, which is a majority of deaths are due to fentanyl. And fentanyl's coming through China and then Mexico, and the cartel's taking it and coming it through the open border.
Oh wow. Okay.
And
And help
fentanyl,
me.
and just a little bit of fentanyl can kill someone. And the
Now
deal
help.
is that the black market, I mean, if you want, let's say, I don't know, Ativan or Xanax, the pills look just alike. And you could take something and it would just have a small bit of fentanyl. You can overdose and die. And I saw, I don't know, it was so sad. This girl, teenager, she overdosed. The first responder cop came up, saw and looked at her room, saw marijuana, saw this. He knew exactly it was a fentanyl overdose right away. And he had what he needed to throw into her body what she needed to live. And luckily that daughter lived. But there are so many people dying in our country of fentanyl, and no one's really reporting on that either. And that escalated even through our lockdown and everything like that. But it's also because through this administration and an open border, we've got a problem. we've got a real problem with a lot of this and the escalation of open border. And also because of immigration and things like that, we need to know what our numbers are of how many are young men and men only, and what is going down. Are they gang? Are they cartel? Is it sex trafficking? Is it just what is going down? And those are
So,
my questions. Those are my questions.
mhm.
I mean, I don't even know the narrative on that, but I do know we have a fentanyl problem. I do know we have a drug problem. I go to on Facebook, I don't even go to the US border thing because that their press is just insane. I have to go to a Facebook page of the US Border Patrol at Laredo to see what they confiscated. And right now, they went to they're doing a lookup or they're working with even a group to see what they can do with trains, because we may have a problem with people working not only with just pedestrians and sedans and trucks, we may have a problem with trains now. Also, Border Patrol, you have a Marine unit. Did you know that? No, I didn't know that.
No, that's
We have this horses, and oh, that's so horrible. Well, the horses were doing their job that a truck couldn't do. So I mean, we looked at all that and said, oh, that's horrible. Well, they really weren't doing anything except doing what nobody else could do. And what they were doing
and
is
how do
saying,
we
hey,
know?
go here. It's like,
Man, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm concerned, the border patrol people probably cooperating with the cartel. Maybe they're getting paid.
no,
Who
they're
knows?
not. No, you are asking a question just like everyone else. Many things that are reported, it's one person buying, how many thousand that go home. And like we say, we call them police or horrible people. They are officers of the peace, and they take care of how many people per day. And they go home and they take care. And how many of these officers of the peace are having to deal with domestic violence? Most of the nights, these officers, they're not even dealing with, they may be dealing with car accidents or shootings, but most of them, they're having to deal with the night beat. They're having to deal with domestic violence and people arguing and calling the cops because it's escalated so much.
And this is what's happening at the border.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying
Okay.
you're pushing me into one thing, and I'm saying you're saying, oh, they're dirty. They're not. No. On Operation Lone Star right now, which it's early July, but they said they've currently seized 33 million in currency. They've pulled up 5,700 weapons that could have crossed the border. They've had 274,000 migrants apprehended, and they've had 16,900 criminal arrests and 14,200 federal charges. Felony charges. And you're seeing, and you may not be seeing, there are a lot of these in New York alone, and we'll see how many in DC, these felons, they may not be even American citizens. Now going
And
to a personal, go ahead for it.
this is not being reported neither.
Have you heard it?
No.
No, you haven't. What are you hearing
That's
on
that's
regular
what I'm
news
saying.
here?
I may be having a error moment here because a lot of the stuff that you're telling me,
I'm going to
I don't know
.gov.
what the
I mean,
source
I'm
of it.
not pulling from, anything that you'd be like, oh, Erin. no, these are .gov sources,
Okay.
so no. I'm not pulling out of the back of my head or anything. No.
Yeah, got you.
Yeah. No. These are at least numbers that are .gov. And a lot of times when I go to pull these pieces out to, like with other things, I've gone to .govs, and like some of these bills, got to .gov and read the bill 3 times to see what reporters are telling me, which is an opposite narrative, and pulling pieces of what they want you to think versus what the real bill is. And sometimes the governor was really telling you what the bill was. Now it's not always that way, but if you go and read the actual bill, you know, it's true, whatever, they may say, but not always. Sometimes, and right now, like I said, we can't always trust what, excuse me, people are telling us. So you need to go to, as much as you can, the source. And that's what I'm trying to do always. And even if you looked at way back when, and this was way back, Reuters, who were supposed to trust an actual photojournalist, he photoshopped a photo to make it look like a immigrant woman, an illegal immigrant woman crossing the border. It looked horrible, and it wasn't. He photoshopped a photo and lost his integrity as a journalist. He was not a journalist anymore. He was creating a narrative that wanted all of us to believe. So it's even hard for us anymore to believe the press. And that's what kills me. I remember in 6th grade, we had to, and I don't know, I don't know how old I am, when did CNN come about? When did 24-hour news come about? But we used to have to do who, what, when, where, why, and how. We had to read an article. And when did this not become who, what, when, where, why, and how? When did this become we have to slant something? But we've got numbers, and not all these numbers are coming about because we have more people that we haven't even confiscated. We don't even know what numbers are in tents. We don't even know. And the sad thing is, we're looking and focusing on this, which is an issue and sad. But again, we're not even taking care of our own. We've got veterans that are doing fentanyl, that are dying from this. We can't even get some veterans into the VA hospital, possibly, or veterans that are so sick, and it's so sad that they can't follow the rules, and so they are doing drugs. And so yeah, they're going to be homeless, because you're homeless because you don't follow the rules. There are rules to help you get the help, and that went off the rails. But I mean, that's where we're going with that. The sad thing is too, we're spending a lot of money to give people that have crossed our border, which is a large border because Canada is a lot smaller, and giving them phones and everything and say, go ahead, go on. And it wasn't that way all the time. You used to have immigrants that got a small visa. They would go, and you're in, I guess, Alabama, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. And in Mississippi, and they would pick, or I'm saying sweet potatoes, and other crops, and then go back home. And now you've got this other insurgence of things happening where it's just not where it is. And that's why you have this homelessness, because this, and what is this? Why are we sending children? The costs are, I can't remember the name of it, the hope of children staying in this and that. Going back to, and you wanted to do first person narrative. I mean, my friend came from Korea. His whole family came from Korea. I don't know if it was sanctioned or whatnot, but they went through the full process. They've run multiple restaurants and things. He's now a pharmacist. I have a friend who came from Australia. She went through all the paperwork. A friend who definitely had to flee Cuba. Many friends, and my mother was of that time. She summer in Miami, many came to Texas. So she went to school with many who were in Catholic school with Cubans. So, I mean, they all have the legal paperwork. And so people are upset. And this is the deal is why are we saying, yay, y'all, you don't have to go through the paperwork. Just come on in and, here. And again, how are they getting housing? We're saying, okay, what's going on? They're homeless. Well, okay, my last apartment, I had to put in a leasing agreement. I had to go through it felt like 48 pages to get a lease, which is more than I think my mortgage was. It was crazy. And my cousin's husband, it was before gay marriage was legal in his state. They ended up having to go to they went to DC and go pay someone to do all the paperwork to get it done. They actually got married in a Starbucks. His sister, my other cousin, her husband was already legal. The problem was he had a job offer in Australia and said, well, wait a minute, the times are changing in this industry. You're going to move me to Australia. I'm going to get stuck in Australia. How am I going to find another job in America? No way. So he did not take the job opportunity. So he saw how things were going to change and he changed his job and work and things like that. You see the show 90 Day Fiance? Well, first everyone's like, oh, reality, it's not true. And yeah, you're right. What do you think about reality TV and 90 Day Fiance? Have you ever seen it?
Um, I've seen it. I don't particularly care for reality TV.
Yeah. My mother's friend, her daughter, never thought they would leave. I think it was Kenya. Don't quote me on that. They decided partially because one child was not the skin color of another, that it may be a problem. And I guess because of kidnapping or what, but they were also living in almost a compound. That's how safety issues and things were like that. They decided to leave. He had to stay for a while. I don't know because of money, economics, or what. She came over. Sadly, she had breast cancer and things like that. He came over, and even that, though, even though it was a legal marriage and everything, it's still possibly he can only stay for 90 days. Even though they went through all the hoops and hoopla, it was questionable or scary that he may not be able to stay and be with his family. Now, why? I'm like watching reality TV and then saying, why? And especially since it's been a legal marriage for so long. And like I said, even though my, cousin who married, gay marriage, they, had to prove and prove and prove for a very long time that, partially, I guess, because of his citizenship, that they've been married and he had been in the country that long. I've also had two legal friends that upped in the Marines. And that was a very surprising thing for me. That why, if you join the service, be it any, do you not become a citizen? That was a surprise for me. I feel like if you want to serve our country, you should become a citizenship. that should be allowed. If you've done your service to our country, you should be a citizen. I did not know until very recently that there's that possibility. I think that would be a very good incentive to say, hey, y'all, well, it could be scary if, cartel came in. I don't know. So now thinking about it, but serve our country. You came in wanting to be here, serve our country, and you're a citizen. I think that's in other countries. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. I think that should be an should be an incentive. If
Hmm.
you want to come here, to serve our country, that should be an incentive
Yeah.
for you to
Mhm.
make
I mean, I
citizens.
think Sweden, everybody has to be served, or I don't know. Yeah. I mean, other countries, I do know you have to at least do training. Yeah. So,
Well, I have to ask this. So what's the,
mhm,
we can firmly establish that the press cannot be trusted. So,
mhm.
so what's the real deal? What's the real narrative that's going on at the border that an average American citizen does not know about? I hear, I hear what's being reported. I hear what's being talked about at the dinner table. But what's the real deal? What's the real story?
What's the real story? I think right now we're dealing with, well, I would say if you really wanted to know, you can book a flight to Southwest on Southwest and go down to Texas and help and see what's going on in Eagle Pass and Laredo and see, because there are Christian and other types of nonprofits that are helping people, and see how many people are crossing and how desperate or hopeful people are that are coming, and also seeing that there are things that need to be done in possibly a legal way to make this happen at this point. I think also maybe we need to find our senators and Congress people to work with our president to say, you need to, like we did with our last administrator or POTUS, to work with our Mexican president and do what we did before and see what we need to do. I think, I don't know where we are with uh, cartel at this point, but we need to come up with a plan. And I think with that, you need to really, which would be hard, work with everyone. That coming down to Fish and Game, Border Patrol, all that, because you're looking at Immigration and Customs Patrol and everything like that. Looking at the numbers, there was not a lot that was funded, which this is your tax dollars. You got to see where tax dollars are put, and you got to push and say, hey, stop giving money to, I don't know, elsewhere, and say, we need to put this money here, and it needs to, like we've talked before, give an audit and say, this needs to go here and this needs to be used for this.
Has
Uh,
anyone ever has anyone ever, like went down there undercover to find out what was going on?
Undercover,
Yes.
meaning how would you go undercover? How would you go undercover? What would you want to do to see what?
Um I don't know if I don't know if I should be discussing this on air. Exactly. What I would do, but I think that there is a way, I think there's a way that you can actually, go down there and actually find out, what's going on without, revealing who you really are, per
Mm.
se. But I don't think I'm at.
There is a woman who feels like she is trying to be a true journalist, is on Twitter and trying to just put out numbers. So, I mean, I think she's trying from her heart to only give out numbers. I think there are a lot. Um, Again, I think, like I said, Laredo Facebook page with the Border Patrol, I think they are trying to say, look, this is what we did. They recently, because I went out right before I was going to talk to you to see, oh, did they, confiscate this or confiscate that?
Mhm.
They just retired. So, I mean, it's not just, ooh, look at this, look at that. They just retired a canine unit dog. They also had a woman who I think, I don't know, high up, just retired. So it's not all just, ooh, look at us, look at us, look at us, as far as we did this, we did this. They are definitely celebrating everything, I think. So I feel like I can feel trustworthy of Laredo telling us this and that, because they are celebrating somewhat of what is going on in all of this. So it's like that Facebook page is just like, a sheriff's department showing you, hey, look, we played basketball with these kids, that was reported on a happy note on, evening TV or something like that. So I think there are things that are going on that uh, are true and reliable sources as well.
Now,
Uh,
there's also been, I know there's also been there's also been a story, to where, there are, kids being caged, in Texas near the border as well.
mhm. I
Any
think,
updates on that?
well, I think the rhetoric is what it is. I don't know if it's caged. Look at what we're talking about right now with rhetoric, depending on who or what channel you go to, whether
Mhm.
we're in inflation or recession. Look at what they're calling it, political pawns versus just moving how many people, illegal immigrants or aliens, are coming to DC. So we've got words or rhetoric, or even I saw somebody, I think on Twitter or somewhere, saying, I think it was on a Twitter feed, pulling up a Wikipedia of the word definition. So words are very different at the moment.
Mhm.
Even, yes, the thing with caged that was blamed, I think, on our last POTUS was actually under the previous POTUS. So again, do you really, can we really trust a lot of what is being put out there, is the question as well. You need to, if you want, how do I put this? Like I said, I really try and go to .gov or really try and find how this was delivered to me. Even Reuters or the Associated Press. Working in the newsroom, I used to watch or listen to on Twitter, heard in the newsroom. And this was way back in like 2007. And it was, hey guys, Associated Press is coming to talk to us today. And the newsroom was like, oh. And it was even back in 2007, Associated Press was not always fact checking the way they needed to. We've got problems. You need to figure out how you need to fact check. Also, the deal is, and coming from academia as well, you don't know this. I've and I don't even know if my bio says that on, it probably does on my website. I came from an academic place as well as journalism. I always say that there are two sides to the story, or even history. History is very interactive. I've always told people, even when they came and met me at a museum and working in National Archives, that you have two sides to a story, and probably somewhere in the middle is probably the closest you're going to come to what really happened. Think about, and also right now, you've got an interesting way of things that are happening because the newsroom is so not funded. You've got iPhone journalism, and people are taking, hey, this free person took a little bit of picture off their phone and they're giving it to us, and they're not getting the full picture and they're just throwing it out there. So I always
I
call it,
seen that a
yeah,
lot
I
as
always call it
well.
iPhone journalism. And they're throwing it out too fast, and instead, because they want to be the first person to get out there, even like, so even now TMZ is more of a reliable source sometimes than other sources
Mhm.
as far as the story. Well, who would have thought that? The deal is, so then again, think about both sides of the narrative, or even, talking to friends, even if something happened, or little kids, think about, oh, the ball dropped here. Well, what did you do? What did you do? I guess in the middle, this really happened, possibly. So again, things are interactive in many ways, before, or as close as the truth will come out, is how I'm going to say that.
Um, now, people that know me, they
Mhm.
know that that number one, I don't necessarily, go by what everyone tell me. I do a lot of fact checking, especially locally, and sometimes when it comes to some state issues and national issues, I do some digging. I do some fact checking, and uh, I don't call myself a journalist. I'm a podcaster. So,
Yes.
you, but sometimes, if I really want to know what the truth is, I have to do a little digging.
We've
You know,
had a
you know,
problem
some-
with that though, because even look at with COVID, hospitals would get more money if they said somebody died of COVID. Well, they could have walked in with flu or a broken arm, and not even a broken arm, but something else, and died, but they tested positive for COVID, and they really didn't die of COVID, but it's on their birth certificate that they died of COVID. So numbers are skewed, and we're getting worse and worse with
oh
government,
yeah, I
so
think there was a
even
story.
with these numbers, what we've got some numbers, and I was laughing because I was like, oh my goodness, even CNN is coming up with a number when I looked this up of, yes, 1,066% have gone up in the fiscal year of seizing, or yeah, of illegals in South Texas. And I'm like, okay,
So where are they getting these
so
numbers from?
exactly. So again, is that fentanyl? Because I don't know where my numbers go. Yes. Is that death? Is that this? Is that this? Is this? We've known, yeah. And I have notes that we've known that we've got, quote, gotaways at the border, and that was 500,000 plus per month, and over, yeah. So we've got 55,000 plus, and it's surpassed over the fiscal year on 2021 already. Yeah. So, and who knows, because where are these numbers coming from? It could be from one side or the left. I hate using left and right because that's so stupid. Red, blue, blah, blah, blah. Is it funding? Is it what? Because is the border or is TSA? The one thing I found interesting before we wrap this up, because I think you want to wrap this up, was that let's see, because I did get an interesting number that I think is true, that it was according to Scripps, the budget is slowly increasing, there we go, as the president's budget for TSA in 2019 was over 7.7 billion. Homeland Security, they spend about 70 billion per year. But the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, that's Border Patrol, only gets 16 billion. So we've got 17 billion, but only 16 billion for Border Patrol. That's not a lot, really, when you're looking at the whole picture. So, I mean, okay, do we do an audit? Do we push for an audit? Do we say, hey, y'all, what's our circle? And do we put more circles here? Do we cut, our federal government has so much secretaries and people we really don't need. And that's the thing too, and I'm going off the subject a little bit, where they said academia tuition has gone up so much, and if they cut half of secretaries and administration, your tuition wouldn't be that high. And why it's gone this way is ridiculous. It's gone the same way as government. And government, you look at things, I mean, look at how people are sitting at their desk eating, snacks and stuff when you go in to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you agree with that, yeah?
Yeah, I definitely, I've seen that myself. I've seen that myself going to some,
Hey,
government
y'all.
agencies. That's exactly what they're, that's exactly what they're doing. They're twiddling their thumbs. They're tapping their pencils.
And they got a good pension
They're acting like they're doing something.
too.
I mean, I've seen it myself, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
That
It's
being
like,
said, there are many people that love their job and do very well. I'm not going to say not everyone. Just like we said, there are some bad officers and police, and there are some very good, and probably the majority are very good. So I don't want to rip, but yes, we could cut and we could spend where it needs to be spent. So yes, okay.
that's an acceptable, response. I can, I can definitely agree with that. But do you think that the art of investigative journalism has been lost, or does it still exist?
I think it's hard to be paid for while you're doing it, where it used to be paid while you were doing it. I think you're a contractor, or you're only doing it by yourself and then throwing it down on the table once you've got it. And somebody say, hey, we may go with this story. Or you watch a docuseries, I'm big on docuseries, on Netflix or something, where someone who had a cold case of their child and said, hey, I'm not letting this go. And that's somewhat of investigative journalism, that they're hitting all the pieces. That may be said that they're helping the journalist because that journalist has the name or the in or knowing to go where a source may be that that person who or family member would not know or be able to get some of the sources. But yes, I mean, look at how papers, when was the last time you physically held a paper?
In the newspaper?
Yeah. It's only my parents that have one, so yeah, me too. when I only go home, and I'm going home in a minute. But yes, it's very thin. The front page, the first half of the page is a giant picture. Okay. And that's the Chicago Tribune. It doesn't have news. Only the bottom half has a little bit. And then they cut all the op-ed or people who wrote every day, little, their, ideas
Mhm,
or however you call it, op-eds.
mhm.
There may be some things, you know, there isn't a lot they're not paying. They cut, somebody bought them out recently and they cut a lot of people. So, and I don't know how many ads there are. There aren't obits anymore. Think of it, how sad is that? So there is no money, nobody writes. There isn't a lot of opportunity, even for us as writers, to write. Even a man way back as a photographer said he started as an intern taking pictures for the Sears catalog. Well, think about how many lost opportunities we have, even as photographers.
So,
We don't have a lot.
so, so the, bottom line, we already established that there are problems at the border. So
Yes.
there are problems at the border. Is being
One
is being presented in a
congressperson
way
said,
that is being presented in a way that is causing a lot of confusion and a lot of misinformation. Is that correct?
every state is a border state at this point. I don't know what congressperson or person said that now, but it is true. Every state is a border state at this point, and showing that in DC shows it, that you're going to have people coming in, you're going to have fentanyl, you're going to have homeless, you're going to have drugs, you're going to have all these things coming in. That's going to be a problem, and it needs to be addressed. And I don't know how it's going to be addressed or where we go from here. But like we've said in the past, with the past podcast with me and my interview, we got to go from the bottom up, be it from your town all the way up. And even schools looking at fentanyl. You got to deal with your kids and
Well,
talking to
yeah,
your
yeah,
kids.
we definitely know
And
that that's
mhm,
a problem, in schools, and not to mention that in 2022 alone, we had a lot of mass shootings,
mhm.
lot,
Yes,
lot of
on
mass.
that too. Yes. So yeah, fentanyl is one thing. Drugs, and like they said, they're always like, oh, guns are a problem. Well, you're putting on gun legislation. Well, the narrative with guns is always usually they're looking at mass guns shootings. Well, I'm in Chicago a lot of times, or I was during lockdown, or not lockdown, but COVID, because I was isolated. My parents said come back home. I was surprised Chicago every Monday said how many shootings there were. Well, how many were actually legally owned guns, or that? Or sadly, how many were black on black or white on white or police
Right.
shootings or this and that? So, or, just, it's sad all the
And
way
we're not
around.
getting a lot of, and we're not getting a lot of
And
information.
permits, yes, permits, I forgot to say.
Mhm.
So,
And we're not getting a lot of
yes,
information on that neither. So
correct.
the narrative
So,
is incomplete.
yeah. So saying, oh, it's all going to be about permits and this and that, making the person, it's just like drugs, hurting the person who is legally doing what they're doing doesn't solve the problem. We've got a problem with people who are criminals, and the criminal is going to find the loophole and the way to make it happen. And even if, and people are like, oh, look at Japan, oh, look at this, because they have, so hardcore, laws. You still got knives, you still got machetes, you still got bombs, you still got everything. You know, I was on a late night watching a late night show. They were laughing about it. Somebody called in a bomb threat. It was a ex-girlfriend calling into her boyfriend and a fiance, a bomb threat. Well, it was a sex toy. They were wondering about that.
Wow.
And the joke was, how big was the toy? So I don't know if you want to leave it on that or not.
Uh, yeah, I think I think I'm gonna shut down at this point.
That's not a border patrol problem. That's just a mental health problem.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, I think this would be an appropriate time to end it
Yes.
right here. Uh, so got a good laugh out of it now. That's
Anyway.
yeah. So yeah, this has been really interesting. I hope that I hope that that this the narrative, the true narrative comes out, and people would begin to see what the real threat, is. And I can truly agree that, every state in America has become a border state simply because that the problems that you have mentioned has spread to other states. Now, I know in Alabama, human trafficking, for example, is a huge problem, and Atlanta is like a
Mhm.
mega center for human trafficking. You got I-20,
Yep.
I-20, is a hotbed highway for human trafficking. Up through 95, I know there have been some problems, in the Richmond area. I mean, I have friends that dealt with this, on a personal level, and places like Atlanta, Richmond, and Washington D.C., Baltimore. That's what they flock to. They're hotbeds for human trafficking. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm telling you is that uh, make sure that you find out what the true narrative is. We know people are talking, and sometimes you have a lot of misinformation that's going out, uh, disinformation, that's going out. Sometimes what people, are saying is true, and sometimes people are what they're saying, is not true. Dig for yourself.
Yes, you need to stay safe.
Yeah,
And
dig for yourself. There are some wonderful resources out there to where you can actually know what the truth is so that you'll be able to, protect yourself. And also too, have a conversation with your representative, your senators and representatives. Have a conversation, with them. Let them know what your concerns, are. So if you really want to know what can I do, talk to your elected officials. That's the first place that you can, first place that you can start. And then sometimes, some of them are very knowledgeable and some of them are not. I've been there, done that, but that's a conversation, that you can start with your local officials, your state legislators, members of Congress. Have a conversation, with them. Let them know what your, concerns are. You kind of want to stir up the pot, at least to get the conversation, going, and let them know that, hey, I have a major concern and I want to talk to you about it. Sometimes they don't know. So I feel that it is our duty as citizens that we let them know what's going on, especially those, of you who live in Texas. You definitely need to be talking to your official.
yeah, you
Uh,
need to be looking at houses. You also need to know on a personal level, be very careful about how someone may be speaking with you and manipulating easily your brain at this point with
Mhm.
COVID and everything else, to where you may be pulled into something. And also be aware that be aware of possible drugging. I have been very careful. Think about at a bar, I always no longer buy a open beer. I only buy a can that I see the bartender open the can. And personally, I've let a man cook for me, and there might have been a problem with that. So I would say, don't do it. Wait and go out and let them pay, or you uh, split the bill. But yes, be very careful in these times, because these times are very different. And yeah, probably male and female, you need to stay safe and you need to be careful. It's not just about other people, it's about you.
Very, very sound advice. You just need to be careful of your surroundings. Um, we're living in very difficult times right now, and now is the time to look out for your neighbors and be your brother's keeper. I think that we have lost the sense of it takes a village.
Mhm,
We have definitely gotten away from that. We need to go back to that. To the point that we need to look out for one another. Um, I talked about that a lot about how number one, people do not have a sense of they don't take not gonna say take pride in their life, but they don't value life. You have a lot of people that don't value life anymore,
mhm,
like they used to. You've probably seen that all, right. Even when you open up your door, in your house, you see that people do not value life, anymore. Everything is about making a dollar, these days, or, looking out for themselves. We see that pretty much everywhere we go, from restaurants, to bars. There's been some stories, out there that people will go into bars and they would slip drugs in your drink.
mhm,
We seen that. We heard that happening.
mhm,
We also hear that there's been a lot of challenges on social media platforms like TikTok,
mhm,
to where, adults are luring, children into, all sorts of things, and they're posing like people, that they know that they are familiar with. And, um, and sometimes they will do it in broad daylight at a park or something, thinking that, I'm a friend of the family, or I'm your long lost uncle, and things of that nature. And that's how, people get snatched up, as well. So be careful of your surroundings. We also have, cases to where, say that I might buy something off of Facebook, marketplace, and I meet this person somewhere. Next thing you know, I'm robbed.
mhm,
I get robbed. That has been happening, as well. And now a lot of your police stations, would have this station to where if you don't feel safe meeting a person, a seller at a particular location, then you can come to your local police precinct. And 9 times out of 10, if they're legitimate, they'll show up. If not, then you need to question their legitimacy. So, that's going on, as well. So be careful of your surroundings, please. Have a conversation with your lawmaker, and let them know, how you feel. Make phone calls. Please write them a letter. Do whatever you got to do to get, their attention. Most of them do are on social media by law. They can't block you. If you want to have a conversation with them on social media, they cannot block you. That is the law. And they can get into a lot of trouble for doing that. But however that you want to now I know there's been some cases to where, people, they will protest right at their home. I've seen that happen.
Mhm.
I've seen that happen too. You know, they go, I've seen that, as well. I'm not suggesting that you do that, but please, I'm not suggesting that you do that, but please strike up a conversation with your local representatives and let them know, because some of them, a lot of them don't know unless we speak up. So please, you know, do that. Um, 9 times out of 10, when we do that, uh, hopefully that we are being heard and that they are taking what we're saying, seriously, because locally we know what's happening because we're there. A lot of times that people they're know-it-alls. They think they know everything. And I'm like, you don't live here. I'm telling you from my own personal experience what is going on, what is happening, because I live here. And so your local folks, are going to have more than likely they're going to be the ones that tell the truth because they're there, they live there, they know exactly what goes on in their community every day. So, and this is where representation should come in. You are elected to a position. You need to interact with the people in your district. That's the only, so it's not just saying, okay, I need to go talk to my representative, which I should. It should be a two-way street. If they really want to know what's going on, especially with, Border Patrol and, and Texas, for example, you got Texas representative, they need to meet the people where they're at. I believe it's a two-way street. It shouldn't be the citizen, all the time trying to strike a conversation with your local representative. It should be the other way around, as well. You're elected to represent the people. Then sometimes you have to meet them where they're at. It's not me, breaking my neck, for example, to go to Montgomery all the time. Sometimes Montgomery needs to come to me. If you want to get to the bottom of something, let's meet halfway. It shouldn't be me saying, we're going to take a bunch of folks to Montgomery and we're going to have a conversation with our state, representative. It should not be that way all the time. Meet me halfway. If you're saying that this is really a concern, meet me halfway. It is a two-way street. That's just how, I feel. Aaron, you may, think differently, but I think government should, it's a two-way street. If if it was really, up to, to me, government would actually be different. But I'm just one person. You have over 300 million people, that live here, and everybody, no two opinions are alike. But I think at this point, we should find common ground. And how can I find common ground when I'm not being delivered the truth? Even I'm delivered, a half truth, or I'm being delivered a blatant lie. And we know journalists tend to lie, too. I seen that, for myself, where, even, journalists, are being manipulative. And you can tell too, even if you go online, to some of these media outlets websites, and right off the bat I can tell if that person is telling the truth or not. You said it yourself, words matter. Words matter, and sometimes grammar matters too. when I see that a piece is being, thrown together and it has like a lot of grammatical errors, I'd be like, I can't really I can't really trust, this source. And then you got some things that in the story that is missing, is incomplete. So you're walking away already confused. In fact, you're probably more confused, after you read the story before you even began to read the story. So the narrative matters, as well. How can I be an effective citizen if I don't know what the truth is? For as far as I'm concerned, I could be lying myself. You know what I'm saying? I'm just using myself, as an example. So, and sometimes that's going to, involving you as a citizen to dig deeper, too. We can't expect our elected officials to do it. We cannot necessarily depend on the media to do it, as well. Sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands and find out for yourself what is the truth. And it's not that difficult to do, ladies and gentlemen. So if you really want to know the truth, sometimes you got to dig for yourself. Are there any closing thoughts that you would like to have before we close out?
To me.
Yep.
Oh, I very well spoken. I actually have reached out to my representatives. I also, my website, my biography does say I was very sick, almost died. We're going on 7 years anniversary, December 7th or so. I had organ failure and have been recovering since then. So I've also had a few things where I've wanted to uh, speak out to government and try and find where I could speak to Congress or my local state, because I found out it was a state issue instead of federal, but also federal issues as well. So yes, I am very much aware and always stay in on what's going on. The deal is, as archivist and an oral historian as well, with, oh God, sorry about that, as well, doing this, traveling down the Delta Blues Highway, I want to have people's voices heard that wouldn't otherwise be heard. So, I mean, like you said, it's always about voices and things as well. Truth
Number,
is always the truth, and yes, and voices are always voices. I know personal narrative, and you know, we need to come together and figure out what the story is or how we believe what we're going to believe, and respect everyone's ideas, because everyone's ideas are going to be different on certain topics, especially on how we deal with standard operation of protocol on this issue. I feel that we had an idea before we had things even way back about people coming in and doing paperwork and things. And I just wish that right now in these times, we have something, especially with a recession, that we have some SOP that would help us figure out where we need to be and where we're going from now. I think everyone needs to have a voice, as you said, and everyone should enjoy life and look forward, and yes, be welcome, but be welcome in the way that they need to be welcome. Okay.
Aaron, I really thank you for coming on here and bringing your perspective to this issue, and you gave some very valid information. I know some things that I didn't even know about. So
Mhm.
narratives are so important. The right narrative is most important. And that's why we bring people on, like yourself,
Mhm.
uh, that will provide that, a different perspective, that people may not, had thought of, you know, I know sometimes we was, laughing and joking and
Yeah.
things of that, but this is a very serious topic, here. It is a controversial topic, a very sensitive, topic. A lot of people had some strong opinions, about it, whether they're right or wrong. People have a lot to say, about that. And we want to bring the most accurate information, because again, like I said earlier, how can you be that voice if you don't have the accurate information? And so that's one of the things that, I am personally, dedicating to do is to search out, what the truth is. I'm not a journalist.
Mhm.
I'm not a journalist, but I am a person uh, that seeks out the truth. And I think that as citizens, if you really want to know what's going on, even in your own backyard, sometimes you have to do a little digging. And the purpose of this podcast is to bring those type of people, together. Sometimes the streets, as we call it, I know we call it here in Birmingham. When people are talking, we say that the streets are talking. And 9 times out of 10, when the streets decides they want to open up their mouth, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get the truth out of it. And sometimes, government is afraid of that, and I'm like, okay, you afraid of your own people, that you're supposed to
Hmm.
represent? That's a problem. Okay, but that's another conversation. We're not going to get into that. But folks, for real though, we had a great time here. Um, information that was presented here was very thought provoking. I hope that you have learned something, today. And I hope that, you would start having a conversation,
Yes.
about this and, get in touch with your local officials that represent you, whether it's on the local level, the state level, or the county level. Let's get more involved in what's actually going on.
That's a
Once you
helpful
get,
thing.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Am I on?
Yeah,
Am I on?
yeah,
Okay.
we
One more thing is, even like we said, you see with the podcasts, we have a lot of dialogue,
mhm.
and we talk back and forth. We had fun in a way. We laughed, and it never got escalated. Okay. So, and like I've said with Facebook, a lot of times people will write things and have anger, and they will say things, they write things that they would never say to a person face to face. So I just want to say, please, even if you have a different opinion than the other person, or like we may have some idea that's different from something else, have that discussion, because you're going to have different pieces. And it's like, hey, I never thought about that. Or, huh, that was interesting. And now I'm coming to, like we said, or I said, well, here's an idea, here's an idea. Ooh, here we are now. So keep it going, guys.
Yeah, let's keep that. Yeah, let's definitely keep the conversation going, and we will probably do some updates on some of these, topics, in the future, because we want to continue to keep people informed of, what's going on. And so the first thing that, we have to do is have that open dialogue. So be on the lookout, for that. And we're going to get on out of here. Again, we have a great guest that's coming on next week, and we'll be again talking about issues that is springing from the media, and we are having guests on here that will put their personal spin on topics that are being talked about or not being talked about on the news. So that's what this podcast is about. So thank you so much for being a part of
Mhm.
this episode, this segment, and we will see you next week.